We're here, of course, with Lee Camp. All right, we got horrible news last night. Horrible news. I first saw drop site tweet out at 8:35 p.m. on the East Coast in America. Breaking: Israel resumes war on Gaza. The Israeli Prime Minister's office, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and Israeli Defense Minister Yisrael Katz have instructed the military to take forceful action against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Medical sources in northern Gaza have confirmed to Drop Site News that aerial bombardments are being heard across the entire Gaza Strip from north to south, everywhere, literally everywhere, said one source. So they dictated the statement from Netanyahu's office here. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz have directed the IDF to act forcefully against the Hamas terrorist organization in the Gaza Strip. This comes after Hamas repeatedly refused to release our abductees and rejected all offers it received from the U.S. President's envoy, Steve Witkoff, and from mediators. The IDF is currently attacking targets affiliated with the Hamas terrorist organization throughout the Gaza Strip with the aim of achieving the war goals defined by the political echelon, including the release of all our abductees, living and dead. From now on, Israel will act against Hamas with increased military force. The operational plan was presented by the IDF at the end of last week and approved by the political echelon. So Mohammed Safa tweets, Gaza is being decimated. There is now nowhere else left to go. Israel is now bombing more than 1.7 million civilians trapped in Gaza. A massacre is happening in Gaza right now, and the world is silent. So, of course, by Hamas targets, they just mean they're carpet bombing the entire place. What else is new? Now, Abu Bakr Abed is a contributor to Drop Site News. He has a great X handle, so I encourage you to follow him there. And he recorded some audio that Drop Site published in addition to these original reports. The audio on this is a little low, but it is subtitled.
2 in the morning, several airstrikes have occurred in central Gaza, particularly around me and in Deir al-Balah. There was a home that was struck. Many casualties have arrived at the hospital. We've been hearing the ambulances very repeatedly and relentlessly over the course of the past hour. And then we've been hearing intense gunfire along the eastern outskirts of Deir al-Balah. So there have been 5 airstrikes with shells from Israeli tanks along the eastern outskirts of Deir al-Balah. And here around me, there have also been some airstrikes and gunfire has been reported, and we've heard it and in many areas across central Gaza and here in Deir al-Balah. So ambulances are still moving around Deir al-Balah, taking casualties, taking fatalities to the hospital. We're talking about women, men, and we've heard the wails, we've heard the screams of our neighbors, of people around us. So it's been a very terrifying situation, and we're just like all the families as the call for the Fajr prayers. People are preparing for suhoor. People don't have food. People don't have what we can. We as a family don't have what to eat right now. So it's a starvation along with bombardment. It's a very horrific situation. Warplanes are still hovering overhead, and Israeli drones are still buzzing intensely as well. So I don't know what to say, but everyone here is absolutely terrified, frightened, and I don't know what to say.
So here's some more pictures of the terrorists, quote unquote, who were the targets of these strikes, supposedly. Of course, majority women and children dead and injured last night. Gaza notifications breaking inside the emergency department at Al Auda Hospital in Al Nusrat, central Gaza. A large number of wounded and victims have arrived following intense Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza Strip. So here is some footage. Now, it's unclear to me which hospital this is from, but this is a tweet by Ryan Razbiani. I don't even know what to say. The images are brutal, mostly children. From what I have seen at his writing, over 250 Palestinians in Gaza were killed tonight while they were sleeping, over 300 injured.
Oh,
As of last report I saw when prepping the show, The casualties were north of 400, injuries north of 500. I don't know if either of you guys have seen updated numbers since then. That was of a couple hours ago.
Yeah, I saw over 400.
Yeah, so over 400 is the last confirmation. Now, as I mentioned in the previous segment, it is difficult to find footage like this that's suitable for YouTube. But so there's no blood or dead bodies in this, but this does give you a sense of just the panic and the terror that Israel wrought upon Gaza last night. Okay, and now we're going to hear from Feroz Sidwa. He was one of the authors of that report that came out in the New York Times that a lot of the Zionists tried to debunk when he and Dr. Perlmutter found bullets in children's heads and said that there was evidence that children had been killed, targeted with gunshots by the IDF. So he has certainly made the rounds of late. He gave an interview to Sky News. He's back in Gaza now. And here he is describing what he saw last night at Nasser Hospital.
What have you witnessed overnight?
So just utter carnage and destruction overnight. I was here in Gaza a year ago during the peak of the fighting in Khan Yunis, and the mass casualties back then looked exactly like the mass casualty that I saw today. Mostly children. The other half are mostly women, and occasionally there's a man, but I'm pretty sure the man has nothing to do with any of this that's going on. I did 6 operations overnight. Half of them were in small children, so probably 6 and below. I wasn't exactly sure their ages, but it's probably about 6 and below. Most of them are going to go on to die, unfortunately. I'm told, I don't know for sure, but I'm told that about 40 bodies were brought to the morgue directly. And, but yeah, it was just utter carnage, as usual, when you drop bombs on tents. That's what happens.
Now, here is Dr. Mohammed Mustafa describes the horrible situation in a Gaza hospital after a night of nonstop Israeli bombardment. This is really, really tough to take, but here he is.
We've worked throughout the entire night. We haven't stopped. The bombing has been non-stop. We've run out of ketamine. We've run out of propofol. We've run out of all painkillers. We can't sedate anyone. We can't give them any analgesia. When we intubate people, they wake up and they're choking because we have no sedation. There are 7 girls getting their legs amputated, no anesthesia. The bombing is still going on. The room is still shaking. I haven't slept. We went to bed at about 1 o'clock, and at 1:30 the bombing started. It's about 10 a.m. now. I've just gone back to my room. I'm lightheaded, I'm dizzy, and I mean, it was just mostly women and children, burnt head to toe, limbs missing, heads missing. There's a video I put up on my story of me doing the chest drain. The gentleman that did the chest drain, and he died on the way to the CT scan. There's another video of 3 girls laying on a bed. That's his 3 girls, who are now orphaned. Their mother didn't even make it into the hospital. She was killed along with their other sister. I don't know what to tell you. I was here in June, nothing to this intensity. This is unbelievable, and the bombing is still going on. The rooms are still shaking. The screams are everywhere. It's insane. I need to just take 15 minutes, or even an hour, just to rest, to go back in there and go back down again. I feel awful to leave, but I've been there all night and I haven't stopped, and my legs are shaking and I feel dizzy and lightheaded. The smell of burnt flesh is still in my nose.
So thanks to Breakthrough News for that. Just obviously
Wow.
gutting piece of video, absolutely gutting. We have more. We'll take a commentary break here just to react to some of that because this was something that we sensed would happen for the past couple of months. As we'll see in a little bit, Netanyahu was very grateful for the fact that Trump in the original negotiated ceasefire emphasized, "Hey, this is only temporary. You can break it if you want." And we knew it would come
5D
to
chess.
this eventually. Yes, the 5D chess. And what makes this, I think, especially deadly and devastating last night is the fact that it is coming out of a ceasefire where you didn't have safe zones and unsafe zones. You had a ceasefire, so the people were sitting ducks just like they were right after October 7th. And so this was one of the deadliest nights of the entire war, north of 400 dead. That's the official count as of now. It's probably 2 or 3 times that. I'll turn the floor over to you guys for a bit.
Yeah, it's utterly repulsive. And the way they cover this, if you look at mainstream media, they say, oh, the war has restarted or something. No, this is just straight up genocide. It's just a bombing of a civilian population,
Right.
murdering people just endlessly, which before the ceasefire we saw on a daily basis. And if you look at the numbers, they don't fit with the percentages of modern warfare. Modern warfare is all disgusting, but rarely do the number of children murdered go above 6 or 8%. 8% would be kind of crazy. And in Gaza, we're seeing 45% of everyone killed is a child. Israel's just utterly destroying the population, killing and everyone they can get their hands on. They specifically will, they'll have the AI program, Lavender or whatever the other one's called, find that someone, they have some connection maybe to Hamas, so maybe they're something militant or something. Well, we'll wait till they walk into their house with multiple generations living there, and we'll murder them and their entire families. And they'll watch them walk. So it's not like they couldn't murder that one guy. They want to kill the entire family. Obviously, they've destroyed, I think it's 85% of all schools have been bombed. Almost all hospitals have been bombed. They're bulldozing cemeteries, which is like another telltale sign of ethnic cleansing to erase the history of a population. It's just laughable to watch mainstream media go, oh, this is a war. This is not a war.
Yeah, this is a case where they're really able to take the mask off the ugly reality of our foreign policy, because the claims that they're protecting a class of people from discrimination, that they're preventing another Holocaust, that they're fighting against anti-Semitism. They're committing a Holocaust, but it's allowing the West to go to an extreme that generally they will try, at least in terms of the optics, to cover up what they're doing, even when they are backing like the genocidal campaign of Saudi Arabia to Yemen. They didn't stand up and brag about arming Saudi Arabia, but this pretense that they're fighting Nazis when really they're supporting Nazis. They need that to just take the mask off this way. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen America or Western powers. They've been responsible for things like this, but never so openly as this.
Yeah, and the only difference between the Biden administration and Trump is in the Biden administration, they were funding and arming and perpetrating this genocide, but they would stand in front of the podium and say, oh, Israel's trying to protect civilian lives or whatever garbage. And Trump walked into the Oval Office and announced he wanted to finish the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. We're going to take it over, get rid of all the Palestinians, and then it'll be lovely. It'll be wonderful. So maybe he's the first to announce ethnic cleansing as a program in the Oval Office. But other than that, it's really no difference. And, I know it matters to some people. We've seen all these ridiculous claims of anti-Semitism to anyone who dare criticize Israel and their genocide. I'm Jewish, and there's a lot of anti-Zionist Jews in this world. There are actually more Zionist Christians in America than there are Jews in the world. So this idea that all Jews support Israel and Israel represents all Jews, it's just garbage. It's garbage propaganda. And Israel continues to try and push all of that to allow for this genocide. And it's just so much aggressive falsehood pumped out of Israel. just on a daily basis. I mean, even I just did a segment on Unredacted tonight about October 7th and the number of people that the IDF killed on October 7th is hundreds and hundreds. And I know that's an old story now. It's been around for months. But what happened more recently, just a few weeks ago, is Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, who's also a war criminal, who was the defense minister on October 7th, has admitted that the Hannibal Directive was used widely and that the IDF was told to kill Israelis. So every time you hear Israel go 1,200 Israelis, or our mainstream media, 1,200 Israelis killed by Hamas on October 7th, no, that's how many Israelis were killed on October 7th. Many, hundreds of them by the IDF. The IDF blew up hundreds of cars.
And then they tried to I remember, it's funny you mentioned the cars, because I remember that. Because when you saw that those cars were blown out like that, that couldn't have happened. I mean,
then they buried them.
Right. Then they buried them. Right. Guys in hang gliders couldn't destroy those cars like that. That had to be from the Israeli, what were they? Apache helicopters? Yeah. That's where that had to come from. Absolutely. All right. We're going to go on here. So Al Jazeera put out a report. At least 404 killed as Israel unleashes strikes on Gaza, breaking ceasefire. At least 404 Palestinians have been killed and 562 wounded as Israel launched a massive assault on Gaza, shattering the fragile 2-month-old ceasefire with Hamas. Tuesday's attack took place across Gaza, including in Khan Yunis and Rafah in southern Gaza, Gaza City in the north, and central areas like Deir al-Balah. Many of those killed in the attacks were children, Gaza's Ministry of Health said. Palestinian Health Ministry said that 404 martyrs and 562 injuries arrived at Gaza Strip hospitals so far, adding that a number of victims are still under the rubble. Hamas, which governs Gaza, said it viewed Israel's attacks as a unilateral cancellation of the ceasefire that began on January 19th. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he ordered the military to take strong action against Hamas over its refusal to release captives taken from Israel or agree to offers to extend the ceasefire. Israel will, from now on, act against Hamas with increasing military strength, the Prime Minister's office said in a statement. The Israeli military said on Telegram that it was conducting extensive strikes on terror targets belonging to Hamas. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said Israel had consulted with the United States President Donald Trump about the strikes. Here we go. Let's go right to this. This is what they're talking about here. Sorry, those were added out of order. So here's Carolyn Leavitt on Sean Hannity's show last night.
Administration and the White House were consulted by the Israelis on their attacks in Gaza tonight. And as President Trump has made it clear, Hamas, the Houthis, Iran, all those who seek to terrorize not just Israel, but also the United States of America will see a price to pay. All hell will break loose. And all of the terrorists in the Middle East, again, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, Iranian-backed terror proxies, and Iran themselves should take President Trump very seriously when he says he is not afraid to stand for law-abiding people. He is not afraid to stand up for the United States of America and our friend and our ally Israel. And we know that these successful defensive strikes that took place over the weekend against the Houthis in the Red Sea were indeed successful. We took out some of their leaders, and the Defense Department is set to continue with this campaign if the Houthis continue with their retaliatory measures. The president is going to stand for the navigation, freedom of navigation of our seas, which is a very basic principle that unfortunately the previous administration refused to stand for, and that's why we are in this mess in the Middle East in the first place. President Trump inherited a lot of problems, Sean, because of the incompetence and the weakness of the Biden-Harris administration, but he is focused on fixing them, and our allies and our adversaries better take him seriously.
So, see, just unhinged there. Negotiations on the second phase of the ceasefire deal, which would see the release of nearly 60 remaining captives and the establishment of a permanent ceasefire, have been at an impasse over Israel's insistence that the first stage be extended until mid-April, Hamas has released about 36 captives in exchange for nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners since the start of the ceasefire. So, yeah, this is another reason why we predicted, and we prayed we were wrong, but we're not, that it would come to this, because it was very obvious that Netanyahu was seeking to extend phase one of the ceasefire for as long as he possibly could to get as many hostages back as he possibly could without committing to a permanent ceasefire. And that's contrary to mainstream reporting, and obviously contrary to what Netanyahu's office or Trump's office would say was really responsible for the breakdown of the ceasefire. It was Israel that stalled the talks. Israel insisted on not going to phase two because phase two would come with firm commitments to permanently cease fighting, and they did not want that. They simply wanted their hostages back, and hey, trust that we won't hurt you anyway. Well, I mean, that's a joke.
They also cut off all aid going into Gaza, which was a big part of the ceasefire deal. And even when aid was going in, when food was going in, it was not the amount that Israel had promised to allow in. So really at no point during this ceasefire was Israel fully abiding by all the stipulations, which had been carefully hammered out.
They were still killing people too. You heard sporadic reports of
from the
gunshot
beginning.
victim here and there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and shooting children apparently.
Yep.
But so yeah, and then they cut off all aid like entirely. So that's why Hamas, I mean, one of the other reasons Hamas said we're not releasing any more captives is you have cut off all the aid, which was a key point of the ceasefire. But of course, Israel cut off the aid because Netanyahu wanted to go back to this, to just obliterating people.